what does it look and feel like to see success on YouTube? And when you've probably heard the term over and over, scaling to the moon. I've seen and felt that so many times on YouTube in a way I've never seen before, because the earth has gravity. It pulls you back. But once you break through that gravity into outer space, you just fly, right? And that's really the dynamic that most people have with YouTube. I'm curious, how many of you in this room have experienced that feeling of escape velocity with a campaign on YouTube? Just by a quick show of hands. Yeah, I love it. I'm looking over here, I'm like, yes, Organifi, yes, Live Bearded. You have those moments where you experience that, and that's why we're all here today. Because either we've experienced it, or we want to experience it, and I'm gonna be taking us through all of the creative ways that we think about it, and giving away all of our secrets because you made the long flights or drives to be here. So I'm gonna start with a little bit of good news, which is there's a lot of activity on YouTube. I think oftentimes YouTube sort of gets lost in the shuffle because it's so consistent. What I mean by that is like TikTok comes and goes, Meta comes and goes, new platforms, new this. Man, YouTube's stronger than ever. In fact, when you look at it, it's like my dad's on YouTube, my mom's on YouTube, my son's on YouTube, I'm on YouTube, right? Multi-generationally, it's crazy. I don't think there's any other platform in the world. Even television's so fractured now, connected television, linear television. It's pretty much the only consistent platform, it's a shame that more advertisers don't understand how to leverage it, because this is where the attention is. People are spending time here across all generations. And again, I don't think it's been a long time, I would say since pre-internet, that there's been this much opportunity multi-generationally. But this challenge is that more content is uploaded in 30 days than major TV networks would create in 30 years. Just the velocity of what's out there. It's the biggest sea we've ever seen, right? It's just a sea of content. And I think that's both the challenge and the opportunity that we have to think about creatively. Is you can't go into it thinking you're entering a pond, you are entering a sea, right? And so I'll be your captain today. My wife, I wanted to wear a full astronaut outfit, and my wife was like, you're going to Google, you need to be a little bit more serious than that. But I thought it'd be fun. But I'm gonna be taking you through this idea, and really these, not only the creative examples of what we do, but formulas, as well as some things around attribution that will cross over really interestingly with Brett. I just as a show of hands, how many of you have at least either heard of myself or Raindrop, the agency that I run? All right, that's good, about half the room. And so we've done incredible work over the last 12 or 13 years. I'm really proud of it. And I'm really proud to say, as an agency, we've made a lot more people other money than we've made ourselves, right? I feel like sometimes with agencies, it's like, what's the deal? We've seen a lot of success with our brands. They've done over $1 billion in sales, and I have to update that number. I'm proud to say we've now had 14 campaigns that have crossed that 10 million view mark on YouTube. And 10 million isn't like some kind of special number. It's just we've seen that brands that see true lift and success are able to sort of reach that point, and then that campaign becomes something that can work with them for years, as Brett was saying. These are some of the brands that we collaborate and work with. Obviously, Brett was pointing out Dr. Squatch was one that when we started with them, they were 6 years into their business. They were doing $3 million in sales. I was sitting across from Jack, the founder, and we were eating chicken sandwiches together, and he was like, man, I need to get off off Facebook. At the time, he was only working on Facebook. And I was like, all right, well, let's work on this together. We did a lot of brand work, a lot of different types of ads, which you'll see some of them today. But that brand has grown to well over 300 million plus, and has really done incredible work on YouTube and now on connected television, linear television. We've also done a lot of work with Laundry Sauce, which I'll be showing you all today. They're a little bit more they're like a fast-growing startup. So I like to bring different examples, because sometimes it's easy to look at the brand that's already at 300 million and hope that you can do that when you're doing 5 or 10 million. I wanted to bring you some examples of kind of what we're doing today. And this is like the three things, when I was thinking about it, the three areas where people don't get to experience breaking through from the gravity. The first is creative. So we're gonna spend a lot of time on creative today. And so creative is something you're gonna hear over and over and over again, but I think you felt it. I mean, when we watched that Live Bearded commercial, we're like, yeah, I get why that works, right? Like no one was sitting there like, oh, that works, really? It's like, no, that's a good ad. That's really compelling. That guy's super jacked with a nice beard. Like, I mean, I was thinking all the same things you were. And so we're gonna be spending a lot of time on creative today, but I also wanna point out that buyers really matter, especially when it comes to YouTube. I only trust maybe 5 people in this world to truly run YouTube ads. I mean, that's how small that number of people is. And because part of it is what sets up this next part, which will be expectations for attribution. But also, it's because I've seen 3 or 4 campaigns that were just announced dead on arrival. They're like, hey, Raindrop, sorry, we popped it in, it didn't work. I'm like, oh, okay, like you spent all this money, this time, you ran $10,000 worth of ad spend, it just doesn't work, okay? And then we hear back from them 2 years later, and they're like, how you doing? And they're like, oh my gosh, we got with a new buying team, and we went from 7 million to 25 million, and our hair's been on fire. And I'm like, well, when you hear that story 3 times, you're like, okay, well, some things sometimes when you know the creative's good, it does have to be in the right hands, but it also has to be with the right attribution expectations. And we're gonna go through all of that. So let's start with the biggest creative mistakes to avoid. Because I think that sometimes it's easy to focus on what you need to do, but I think we have to start with what we should not do. And I'll also say that, yes, a lot of this is gonna be true of YouTube, but it's true of pretty much all online advertising. So the first is that we want to focus more on what, as a brand, a lot of times we wanna focus more on what we wanna say rather than what people will actually hear. And I'll unpack what that means. But I would say that number one piece is pretty much why 99% of people fail with online advertising, especially on YouTube. The second is we forget the context and the environment that we're showing the ad. YouTube is its own world. If you expect something to work on one channel, on the other, it oftentimes won't. And then the third is there's an actual storytelling formula. I've gotten people from time to time, they're like, oh, you know, if I watch all your ads back to back to back to back for YouTube, they share some similarities. I'm like, yeah. You know, if you want someone to pay attention to you, if you want someone to spend 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes potentially watching an ad, sure, like they do. They do have a certain formula that you have to use in order to grab, maintain connection, and ask for a purchase. So I'm gonna ask you guys to do a little mental exercise here. If you drove here today, or maybe you drove in yesterday, I want you to think about how many cars you remember seeing on the road. You know, I think we passed, it was funny, I made this drive the other day and I saw like 5 white Teslas back to back to back. I thought they were in a club, but I think it might just be an LA thing. But the bottom line is for the most part, you don't notice any cars you drive by. I mean, think about in your lifetime how many cars you remember seeing on the road. You pass them every day. And so if you were to pass that Lamborghini, especially that Lamborghini that Brett just showed with the thing on top, just as a show of hands, how many of you would at least notice it, right? If you're not raising your hand, you're lying or you're lazy. And so what's interesting is when you see a car like that, I know I do, my mind goes to, oh, that's a green Lamborghini. I wonder what they do for work. Green's a very bright color. I wonder why they chose green. I wonder if I accidentally hit that car, like what would happen to my insurance premiums? Like my mind starts going and then I instantly forget about it. I get in, you know, maybe you get into work. And if someone was like, hey, did you see that green Lamborghini on the way to work? You'd be like, yeah, actually I did see that. And the reason that matters is because our brains are hardwired. It's literally called the reticular activating system if you want to impress your friends at home. But it basically means that your brain blocks out almost everything. Right? It just flat out blocks out everything. We think about that in more practical terms as like, we have 5 seconds until you skip, right? But the reality is even before that, I don't think you have 5 seconds to win someone over, you have 2. right? Your brain is just like ignoring everything. I mean, you won't remember 90% of the people in this room today. You won't remember that Brett and I wore the same exact outfit. Like, you just won't. Your brain just tunes it out. So I think the other, this is the kind of this part two, is that there's a certain posture brands take that is creating, it's kind of accentuating this idea of accidentally being ignored. And I believe it sort of starts from a posture that you've probably heard of, which is people don't buy your what, they buy. Why? I heard of your why. So you guys have probably heard that. People don't buy your what, they buy your why. And I think that was a monumental step forward for brands. The problem is, it is a deal killer when it comes to online advertising. It will not work. And I'm going to give you a little analogy, so hopefully it can be a little bit more sticky, which is at one point, we believed the earth was completely flat. And then we found out that it was in fact round. And that was a big breakthrough. Like, wow, the earth is not flat. But there was still one thing that we still believed. It's like we still had a lot of information we had learned about the world. But we still believed the earth was the center of the universe, right? And then we found out the sun was actually the center of at least our solar system, that we revolve around the sun. And so that fundamental breakthrough is huge. And I want to think about the next two slides, the fact that people don't buy your why, they buy their why. We revolve around people. We revolve around the fact that we need to earn their attention, we need to keep their attention, honor their attention. We need to tap into their why. It's not about us. And I'll give you a little bit of a sense. I really believe that when I look at how we've been successful, it's that we figured this out a little bit sooner than most. I was reluctant to even share it at one point because I was like, okay, this is kind of our secret sauce. We reverse engineer this idea. And I want to give you a sense. I want you to think about a business, like you're here today. And if I were to say, I'm here today because I love watching businesses achieve their escape velocity, right? How does that make you feel? Makes you feel a certain way, you're like, all right, good for you, right? Versus if I say, you're here today because you are in the top 1% of all marketers, and you know that one insight can unlock new channels and millions of dollars. How does it make you feel? Right? It's like, it's not about me. It's never been about your brand. It's about what people are trying to achieve from buying your product or your service or who they're aspiring to become. And so if that is your starting point, that's how you create hooks and moments that matter. And so this is sort of just a general checklist to kind of, if you take your ads and you look at them, I want you to ask yourself, in the first 15 seconds, are you using language of us or we or nothing at all? Or are you saying you? Like, are you speaking to people? A lot of times I'll see brands, see this all the time with YouTube ads, it drives me nuts, is that they'll provide what I call context over connection. So they'll have if you were to make a ad for this event, if they just did like a broad sweeping contextual shot of the room, like, oh, there's people here. It's just to set the context, the scene. It's like immediately you're tuned out, right? It better be me saying something outrageous in the first 2 or 3 seconds if you're gonna pay attention. Otherwise, you're done. So connection over context is so important. And I will add one more thing, the wide shots versus close-up shots. I'm gonna show you in a little bit some of the openings that have really, really, really scaled really well on YouTube. And you're gonna start to feel that sense of what's gonna grab you versus having these wide shots where, especially on a phone, like that's a really small person on the screen or a really small product. And so we're gonna look at the differences between those. The second thing we see, this is like, I feel like I have to preach this to people, is if you go onto YouTube and you click the trending button, what are you gonna see? Music videos, makeup tutorials, product reviews, prank shows, cute animal videos. As an advertiser brand, like that's what you're competing with. I'm just gonna let that sink in. It's like, this is unlike any other sort of channel. You are truly amongst some of the most entertaining things that you could possibly have on the internet. And so a question we get a lot is, does my brand have to be funny in order to sell on YouTube? The answer is no, but it has to be entertaining. It has to be. I'm going to show you all an example in a little bit. Back half of this is just loaded with examples, but I'm going to show you a full example of one that has like a little bit of humor, but it's not really a humor-forward video, but man, it is entertaining. And then there's going to be a story arc I'll show you in a bit. I think the other big breakthrough, we kind of had like if I were to think about 3 big breakthroughs that like a lens that we see creative through, yes, the first one is, the idea that your brain is blocking out things and you got to break through the noise. Yes, the second one is you got to have their why in mind. The third one was when we realized that the way we've told stories for thousands of years fundamentally changed about 10 years ago for online advertising. I mean, that's truly crazy. The way books are written, the way songs are written, the way that movies are written, plays are created. Everything has changed in the last 10 years. I'm going to show you guys the new curve in a little bit, but that fact alone blows my mind. That the way that as human beings, I think we hear that people have short attention spans. That is fundamentally untrue. They have short consideration spans. Fundamentally untrue that they have short attention spans. People, I am shocked by how many people will watch a 3-minute ad from us. About sometimes 10 to 20% of people cold watching the entire thing. And so my dad once said to me, I'll never forget it, we started making these longer form ads. I think I showed him the very first Dr. Squatch ad. It's like 3 minutes and 30 seconds. He looks at it and he goes, that was really long. And I was like, oh, I mean, I thought it was good. And he's like, who's gonna watch this? And I was like, Dad, did you watch a 30-minute infomercial yesterday on like some tool you'll never buy? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, this is only 3 minutes. And he's like, oh, that's a good point. Which is funny because then one of our top selling brands of all time was Works, the power tool company, which made the transition from 30-minute infomercials to 3-minute internet ads with this same idea in mind. All right, enough talking about what's wrong or how you want to think about it. Let's jump into what works. Let's see examples and go from there. Can I get a yeah? Can I get some energy? Yeah. Love it. So, I think we've already established it. I'll maybe be annoying, but you gotta break through the noise. This is not news to anybody. There's a lot of ways to do this. You can stack them, but you have to do it either visually with compelling storytelling. And there's a guy online right now, I forget even the brand, it's like High Smile maybe, but it's like a purple teeth whitening product. Dude's a genius. I'm like watching the ads, I'm like, my teeth are already white, but like I can't not watch you. He's great. You gotta honor people's attention. And so I think we always think about things in like these 10-second moments of like every moment only earns you 10 more seconds. Like just because you hook them doesn't mean you got them. You gotta like, keep going. And then you gotta give them something. We use the term edutainment a lot because it's like education, it's entertainment. And so it can be knowledge. It can also just be a smile. I think that people are fundamentally on the internet to learn something new, waste time, and laugh. That's pretty much why people spend time on the internet. All right, so I feel like typically my presentation has like a big animation, but we'll keep it simple. This is a traditional story arc. What people tend to do is have a climax in the back half or towards the back side. It's very popular in a 30-second ad. It's like someone's like making their breakfast, you're following the story, and then it kind of like unveils some sort of moment. And this is what you would see with the hero's journey. People love the hero's journey. There's got to be sort of like something that happens and you go towards it and then they're triumphant. Problem is, that doesn't work anymore. This is the new story arc. Actually, I wish I could come up with it. We were already doing this, and then I found it in a YouTube presentation, and I was like, oh, that's what we're doing. Thanks for giving me an actual chart. So I do give them some credit down there. But yeah, no, this is how we design and think about our ads. You have to start high. You have to start with so much urgency. A lot of times we're starting with a problem statement. Dr. Squatch just starts with like, the soap you're showering with is shit, right? And yes, like cussing is used often just as like a pattern interrupt. I mean, you're just scrolling through the internet. I mean, it's one of those things. You don't have to do that. You'll see a lot of our examples won't, but it is a reality that people have to be shaken out of their mindset. And then we always want to prioritize maintaining connection over selling. It's like, if you are trying to make that hard sell too soon, it is a dance. You want to make sure that you're giving people either a lot of education. Brett mentioned True Earth earlier. I think their ads are fantastic too. We just did one with their team, Ryan McKenzie over there. They're brilliant marketers, but they do a great job of riding that curve of like, they don't ask for the hard sell in the first couple seconds, or even sometimes the first minute. They build out the story. But then we get to the place where you have to ask, right? The idea is you want people to click the link, you want them to buy, you want them to consider, and all of this happens in a motion where the back half of the ad leans more heavily into like validation and continually asking people once the hard work's been done. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play an ad. This is not picking on this ad. By the way, I just randomly, I literally typed in like Tide ad, right? Like I'm not picking on this particular ad, but this is usually what big brands or even small brands will do is they'll make an ad and then they'll try to just load it into YouTube. And I want you to feel in your heart, like, would I skip this after 4 seconds? Like, I just want you to feel it and ask yourself, like, would I watch this? Even if you're the target demo.
We really had our hands full with our 2-year-old.
Yeah, so naturally, we doubled down with the new puppy.
Sure, they're twice as cute together, but now we've got double the stains.
And double the odors.
Thankfully, we also have Tide Ultra Oxy with odor eliminators. It can handle double trouble because it's the #1 stain fighter.
And the #1 odor remover.
I thought you guys were helping.
For the #1 stain fighter and odor remover, it's got to be Tide.
Okay, that's an ad, right? Nothing wrong with it. The problem is, I feel like at this point, I would not watch that ad. I just wouldn't. I would skip it. I'm trying to get to my Mr. Beast video or my Zach King video. I don't know what you're watching, but it's like, it doesn't command and demand your attention. It doesn't keep you wondering. I'm about to play you an ad that launches in 2 weeks. Ask them for permission to show it. But it's also for a laundry product that's doing well. It's laundry sauce that I mentioned earlier. And I want you to just feel like it almost dares you to skip it. Even if you don't care about what they're selling, you're like, what the heck is this ad for? That's just the beginning state of how we think about advertising. So I'm gonna go ahead and play that example.
Unfortunately, it's really good. My life was simple, predictable, routine, and I threw it all away when I started using laundry sauce, the world's best smelling laundry pods. I lost my job in middle management. They made me CEO. So much power. No one can resist the French saffron. Sweet, spicy, botanical. Get out of my life, you beautiful smelling pod! I never used to think about laundry. It just used to be a boring chore. Now I can't stop. If you want your life to stay exactly like it is and never change or get better, then don't go to laundrysauce.com.
So what's fun about that is it's not just a random shot in the dark. Hey, let's put something outrageous out there. Like that was the leading ad copy, even on still images on Meta, right? We're not just like, hey, let's just make a crazy ad. We wanted to reverse engineer this idea of like, unfortunately, it's really good. Fortunately, I'm buying $100 laundry detergent now, right? Like, it's incredible to watch their growth, but if they were to make a version of that Tide ad, would it work? No. And so sometimes seeing things like side by side, you can kind of get a sense of like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. If I'm on YouTube, I might actually watch that commercial. And then also, just to parlay into things we're gonna talk about later, we made 5 of these vignettes, right? So we're gonna be testing, different avatars. We're gonna be mashing up and creating variations of them. We're gonna be testing different scent profiles. And so a lot of YouTube also gives you a really nice opportunity to learn because you're gonna be able to see average watch times, click-through rates, things that are showing you engagement that you can take as learnings to new channels. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there are a couple more selling sort of like rhythms to what we do. So earlier I talked about starting with a problem statement, but there's also the product demo That's kind of that purple teeth whitening thing I was talking about earlier, where it's like you're seeing the product in action right away. If your product is super visual, that's something that always will perform well. So if you're thinking about it, hey, good to see you. If you're thinking about it, it's one of those things that if you see the product in use, if it's something that's really compelling, a great way to start. And then there's also just sort of the straight offer. I would kind of argue that if you look at that Live Bearded ad that Brett shared, it was almost like it went straight into an offer, and the offer itself was sort of the construct for the ad, where it's like, this offer is so good, I dare you to like click away because you're gonna miss out. And so I'm gonna show you, this is gonna be just sort of a montage of some of the best performing openings to ads that we've done. And I want you to see, there's so many different ways you can go about it, but I want you to feel what might be right for you and your brand as you go through this and kind of just get a sense of what can grab people to pull them in to your funnel.
Every day is filled with opportunities to level up.
Well, secret agent, it looks like you're in a hairy pickle.
There's got to be a better way to groom your groin.
You have a clean, beautiful home. Perfect for hosting your messy friends.
Do you want a perfect lawn? Does a sloppy yard make you want to just... Me too.
Listen up. The soap you shower with, you probably haven't even questioned what bar of soap you lather up with. Let's face it, most guys don't. They're still using whatever bar their mommy bought for her little man. Is that what you want? To smell like mama's little man? Ugh.
Gross. Boring basic coffee is leaving you dead inside. Thank the Dark Lord, there's Bones Coffee.
Your favorite fragrances shouldn't just be for fancy emergencies. What if you could afford to smell your best all the time?
Your face is your moneymaker, so why would you pair it with cheap plastic? And why does some plastic cost $500?
Hi, I'm Dr. Shannon Klingman, founder and CEO of Lumi, the aluminum-free deodorant for everyone's everything.
Let me paint you a picture. You shell out hundreds of dollars on a pair of fancy sunglasses, and then life happens.
Oh, what's that magical smell?
Well, it's definitely not us.
No need to fear, my stinky peeps.
Whoa!
I know, right?
You smell amazing.
Thanks! It's native.
I used to have a long one, but now it's perfect.
When it comes to your brand's URL, shorter is sweeter.
Shorter ones just perform better.
All right. I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea how the last hook performed. It just makes me laugh. I'm just be real. But overall, what you're gonna do, I'm curious too. For those of you earlier, I asked the question, how many of you heard my name, heard of Raindrop, and asked you to raise your hand. How many of you have seen at least one of those ads? Okay, that's pretty much the whole room. What's interesting is that a lot of times people will realize, oh, like there's some connection points here between these brands who are able to spend a lot on their online advertising behind campaigns that really break through the noise. I mean, they can really kick in the door. And we're gonna go over this in a little bit, but the reason, there's just one simple reason, which is, in my mind, you either have a photo that you see on your meta feed, and it's like, photo, okay, that's an engagement. Whereas like average watch times on some of these ads, by choice, people are spending 30 to 50 seconds, right? That brand impression in someone's life, like that's a green Lamborghini. They spent some time thinking about you, engaging with that ad, understanding what you do and what you solve. And so after doing this, I mean, 13 years in, truly like 6 or 7 into creating this content that connects and converts and actually sells, I think the process-wise, people ask like, well, so how do you do this? The reality is process-wise, we spend, as a team, anywhere between 50 and 120 hours thinking about conceptually, how are we going to get, create, and manage attention before we even write a single word. right? Most companies will make a whole brief, and then they'll write a whole script, and then they'll be like, okay, so then how are we gonna bring this to life? What are we gonna do? What's the storyboard going to be? And so this is just a fundamentally different way of thinking about it. How are we going to make sure that we get and respect and keep people's attention? I'd also argue that when you watch all the best YouTubers out there and all the best content creators, this is just how they think, right? Oh, I gotta do something that's gonna make you click, gonna make you watch. Now they're doing things like, going on $1 million yachts. And I honestly have no idea like where YouTube is going, because I feel like if you're paying attention, it's like they're always doing the next one-up thing. It's like, I gave a stranger $10 million. You're like, damn, like, it's crazy what people are doing. I also want to really make this is such an important point coming out of today. There's a lot of ad inventory that is 6 and 15-second ads. I would say almost now, probably 40 to 50% of what we do is omni-channel, and we do a ton of these 6 and 15-second ads. If you have a brand that's at retail, man, like they can be a really, 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 really powerful ad unit. You can get a lot of velocity, you can get some lower CPMs, people can't skip them. There's a lot of great uses for 6 and 15s, but I want to spend some time focusing on that 1 to 4 minute length. Brett quoted it as 1.5 minutes to 3 minutes, which honestly is probably even closer to where you need to be. And I'm gonna share with you all the things that took us years to learn, so you just get a little head start on your quest. So I love this quote. General advertisers use 30-second commercials, but the direct response fraternity have learned that it is more profitable to use 2-minute commercials. Who do you suppose is more likely to be right? In their magazine advertisements, general advertisers use short copy, but direct response people invariably use long copy. Who do you suppose is more likely to be right? I'm convinced that if all advertisers were to follow the example of their direct response brethren, they would get more sales per dollar. So, love that quote, right? I'm like, damn, that is really true today, 2023. That's 40 years ago. 40 years ago was that quote. It's an Ogilvy quote from 40 years ago. I mean, it gives me the chills, at least. When I was like reading his book, I was like, whoa. Some fundamentals just never change. But why? Why is that true? So one of the reasons is that if you earn enough time with somebody, they actually get enough information to pre-qualify them before they even hit your website or your landing page, which is really important because we spend a lot of time worrying about tweaking our landing page and our listicles and making sure people have enough information, but like you kind of already have the opportunity, if you spend enough time with somebody, to impart a ton of knowledge. Also, it builds a really strong connection with the brand, not just a solution. I can give so many examples, but there's a lot of brands out there where they spend all the time educating somebody, but then someone can just come and sweep up the person that bought. So I think about, earlier we talked about True Earth, there's Earth Breeze. It's like most people, they don't know the difference. So like you really have to make sure that you're making that branded impression so that they're not just buying the solution. You spend all the money and time educating this consumer, and then they go and buy your competitor because all of a sudden they don't really understand. That can happen, especially in this like meta world where as soon as I click an ad for shoes, I see a lot of shoes. And as soon as I click an ad for whatever your brand is, I see all your competitors. And that's why we find that having a longer form video of some sort can really help people to make that conversion. But the other thing is psychologically is, and we do this at the end of a lot of ads, we'll say, look, you just spent 3 minutes watching this ad. You know you want this. You gotta click the ad. It's true, it's something about spending time with the ad. It kind of like pot commits somebody to like, okay, yeah, I'm interested. Like, I can't not be interested. I just spent all this time watching your ad. I will also say that kind of a unexpected benefit is that it can turn random people into salespeople for you. In fact, was it JR? JR's in the room. He made an ad a while back where it was for a pool fence company. You know which one I'm talking about? DIY pool fence.
Pool fence, DIY.
Yeah. So I saw that ad. I was like, great ad. I don't have a pool. But my buddy had just had a kid at the time, and I was like, you know what? There's a DIY pool fence solution that you can get at a fraction of the cost. Here I am selling the product because I watched this ad, and I'm not even the end consumer. And I think that that's where we see, Brett talked about lift a lot. Those are the unexpected benefits of having a really high quality, longer form ad, is that you turn anyone who's watched it into somebody that can turn and tell somebody else who may be experiencing the pain point. Or it allows them to literally just take the link and forward it to the end consumer. And over, we have seen that to be the case for so many brands and services. So I'm going to show another couple ads here, but one of our best performing ads of all time was about 5 minutes long. It scaled to well over 300 million plus views. You may have been served this or seen it. I'm not going to play the whole thing. But I do think what was interesting about it was, one, it was just sort of a best of mashup of stuff we had done before. Like, we just took this narrative that we'd been working on for years and created this thing that kind of like reminds me of a boxer that like jabs, right hooks, it does all sorts of things. And so I want you to feel when you watch this, it grabs you, it's interesting, but then you see real people interacting with the product. Then you just see silly stuff. And in the silly stuff, though, it works and it endears you so you feel something towards this brand. So this is a Dr. Squatch ad we did. The full version's online if you just type in like Dr. Squatch, save your skin or something like that. But this is just like the first minute and 20 of it. And I want you to get a sense of that rhythm, though, for like, oh, I see why this works.
You're not a dish. You're a man. Most name brand bars and body washes you rub on your skin are classified by the FDA as synthetic detergent. It's not even real soap. Start treating your body to the natural, nourishing, lathery goodness of Dr. Squatch soap. Get ready to step out of the shower feeling alive.
That smells really good.
It smells like my guy's cologne.
Okay.
It smells really good, yeah.
Smells
really
good?
sexy.
Oh, that smells really good. I would use it, but like, if a guy smelled like that too, I'd be like, ugh.
If my man was wearing this, I would be all over him.
It's natural. It's kind of like being in a forest.
I would use this on myself.
Way better than like the regular store-bought soap.
I'm talking about natural, nourishing, cold-pressed, hand-cut soap for men. So go to drsquatch.com to feel, smell, and shower like this every day. Our soap is handmade here in America, using a process that's been perfected over thousands of years. It's perfect.
So, and something that's kind of funny, like the moments of them arm wrestling or roasting their hot dog and steak over the fire, that we didn't use that for the first year after we shot it. We're like, what the hell are we gonna do with this footage? Like, it was just, we just kind of had it in our plan in our day, like, let's get some random stuff. And it turned out to be a winning formula for us. So let's talk about some simple tips that make a big difference. And these are gonna be things that if you just take one of these nuggets, it could really make a huge difference. The first thing is, I mentioned it earlier, every 10 seconds earns another 10 seconds. I literally watch all of our ads, and so does our team now. Everyone's been trained to think this way. It's like, okay, we call it drag. Like if there can be no part of this ad where I want to check out. Something I'll do from time to time is actually show my now 8-year-old son our ads, because I want to see if and when he checks out. Right? I want to see what happens when attention starts to wane, because if it wanes, it doesn't matter what you want to say. No one's going to listen. We always move quickly with cuts. You saw that from and with Brett. And we also want to shake people out of their mindset. I think you felt that with the different hooks that you saw. Obviously, that laundry sauce ad. It's like, okay, if you're just cruising the internet and you're like half asleep in your bed, you get served that, you're like, what is that? It gives you a swinging shot at actually selling. We talk about connection, and I mentioned earlier showing it to my son, but using language at a 6th grade reading level, you hear it a lot, but man, it makes a big difference when you just keep things really, really simple for people. Yes, we're all intellectual beings, but I think we also just don't want to think that hard when we're like cruising the internet. We're there to watch a prank video. We get served this ad before we're about to watch it. It's just a reality. We also talk about just planning out that funnel. That's where it's like none of this works in a vacuum. I loved when Brett made that point earlier, because I think sometimes people have these expectations that just set them up for disappointment. And then I also just have this random note here that like emojis work. I love using emojis in advertising. I think they're underutilized. I think brands are scared to use it for some reason. It's how we communicate with each other. I mean, after this, I'm gonna send Brett some little heart emojis. Also validation. Man, did you guys feel the validation in that Dr. Squatch ad with people touching it, smelling it? You can't touch or smell that product, but people are conveying to you how it smells, how much they like it through the screen. Human reactions attract, right? If you have a product that people can respond and react to, super powerful. Putting them as like back-to-back-to-back mashups only builds on that momentum. And then you can convey senses through the screen. That was another thing I just said, but want to make sure, because we smell a lot of stuff that you can't smell, you can't feel, you can't touch. You got to find a way to convey that. And then, man, this was one of those other moments that unlocked a lot for me was, have you guys read the book, I think it's called, by Chris Voss, called Never Split the Difference or something like that? Apologize if I butchered the title, but there's a really cool part in there where he talks about a study where he says people with a certain part of their brain that's been damaged, one of the things that they can do is explain to you a decision that they should make, but they have a really hard time making decisions. And what I realized is that human beings, all of the all the reasons that you should buy something, all the features and benefits and all that, it's all like propane. It's just floating in space, you need it, but you need a spark. Like you need some reason, some emotional reason to buy. And so it's all emotion. That's why we try to make people either laugh or cry or do whatever. It's like we have to pull out emotion because they literally can't make a decision on buying something without it. And so I've shown you a lot of very funny examples. This is gonna be one that swings more on like a entertaining example. And I'm actually gonna show you the whole piece because this was a really, really, really successful ad for them to scale on YouTube. And I want you to feel as you watch it, I'm gonna ask you a couple questions afterward, but a couple things I want you to just pay attention to. Check out, after the first call to action where we say, hey, go to the website, feel the momentum as we kind of, I call it like a kick push. If I don't know if you're into like skating or whatever, I wasn't, but the idea is just you feel the momentum get pushed along, but you also get a sense of it really levels up the brand. And we'll talk about it a little bit afterward, but I want you to feel how you feel towards this brand after watching this ad.
Sick of designer brands keeping your favorite scents out of reach?
Oh, darling, that scent was just made for you. At least a richer version of you.
You deserve better. This is Dossier. Luxury quality scents at a price you can afford. Because guess what? Fragrance can't be patented. So your favorite scent doesn't belong to a brand. With Dossier, it belongs to you. For the cost of a single bottle of this designer brand, you can get all this. We've got over a dozen different scent categories for men and women. From posh aquatic to floral palettes to luscious woodsy aromas. All inspired by the iconic scents you know and love. By brands like Chanel, Creed, Tom Ford, and so many more. We dare you to smell the difference. So if you're ready to step into the future of fine fragrance, click the link. Because with Dossier, the future is now.
Wait, what was now?
For years, the perfume market's been an overpriced, olfactory oligarchy. Some of those bottles you're forking over Benjamins for cost the companies as little as a Jefferson. That's a 10,000% markup. 10,000 for what? Extravagant bottles? Over-the-top marketing? Celebrity endorsement fees? When I want passion over paying rent, I choose Penthouse. What does being rich and famous have to do with smelling good? Nothing. I'm an E-list celebrity. For now. And I smell amazing.
How? You?
Offense intended.
None taken. Dossier believes in the craft and quality of luxury fragrance without the markup or toxic chemicals. We source the cleanest ingredients and enlist the expertise of the finest French perfumers. We're made from the same sweet stuff as our competitors from the same perfume capital of the world, Grasse, France. And you know France is always down for a revolution. We're a fragrance company for the people, making affordable scents for the 99%. To wear all the time. Grocery shopping, first dates.
We're starting next Wednesday.
Government assessed a fine.
Even Zoom calls. Now your favorite fragrance can spend less time sitting on a shelf and more time making a statement in the world. But don't just take it from me. Take it from smart, savvy scent connoisseurs like you, who love nice things. And with our risk-free guarantee, you can buy and try with confidence. And the more you buy, the more you save. So click the link to explore luxury scents at a fair price with Dossier, the future of fragrance.
Okay, so a couple things to point out that you may or may not have felt during that. One is we needed to elevate what can be seen as a knockoff product, right? Let's just start there. Two, we can't make fun of any sort of luxury products or brands because the people that are buying this love the luxury products and brands. That's why they want it. Right? But what we can do is we can poke fun, and that's where any of the humor came in, is at the sort of like gouging profit motives of the people behind the luxury product, behind the market, behind the brand. And so as we go through that, you start to understand, you learn a lot, like that's really edutainment at its finest, because you now know a lot about perfume and cologne. You understand that there's big markups. You understand that Grasse, France is where a lot of the perfume comes from. You understand that scent can't be patented. Like how interesting is that, right? Just as a general thought. And so I just wanted to showcase sort of that example because I think it can be easy to look at like a Dr. Squatch and see people like roasting raw meat over fire and be like, my brand can't do that. Like it just doesn't work that way. It doesn't have to. There's so many different ways to approach that sort of like curve that we're going to ride of grabbing attention, maintaining connection, and bringing people through to the purchase. Okay, so final stretch here. This is where Brett talked about it earlier. We talked about post-purchase attribution expectations. And I would argue at this point, I know more than I should about this, not because I buy media, but because every time we see a brand experience escape velocity, I'm like grilling them. I'm like, what are you seeing? How are you buying this media? How do you have the confidence to scale, right? And they've been very generous. You know, our friends at Dr. Squatch, at Shady Rays, at Bones Coffee, a lot of these groups that are scaling, they are looking at this through sort of like a artistic way of finding their attribution. And I'll give you a couple more specific examples, but I think that this is where most brands it's like a stumbling block out of the gate. It just doesn't work exactly like Meta or more bottom of funnel sort of like behaviors. And so people just get really discouraged and they give up. That might be why you're here today. You're like, I know this can work for me, but I just get discouraged because the numbers I see in my dashboard are lower than my other channels, so why would I ever spend more money there? I just want to see by a raise of hands. Is that how are people here that are feeling that way? Okay, great. That is a really, really common feeling. And I hate to put it this way because I remember asking someone, how did you know you loved what you did for work? And they said, I don't know, I just knew when I knew. And I was like, that sounds like someone explaining love, which is not super helpful. And so I will not lie to you and say that there's some sort of like super easy way to tell, right? But I'm going to give you what our top brands do to get the confidence to spend more. So the first thing is they are looking at click-through rates, but they're looking at it in the proper context. A lot of times, strong ad on Meta might anywhere between a 1 to, I've seen a 9% click-through rate on an ad once that we did. All that being said, it's pretty common that you're looking at click-through rates. On YouTube, the user behavior is radically different. I know when I get served an ad, and now not only do I have my phone, connected television, I'll open up a new browser tab. I might go to the website directly. I'm not usually going to click the link because I'm there to see another video, right? Like, let's not forget that we just interrupted somebody before they're about to see a video. That being said, it is like an important sort of engagement metric to look at, to just understand, like, okay, people are engaging with this ad, but don't be discouraged that it's so much lower. We talked a lot about like branded search lift, and I think this is sort of, I had a feeling when iOS was changing, my very first thought was like, oh, well, people are just gonna start looking at their attribution like our clients who spend heavy in TV or our clients that spend heavy on YouTube anyway. It was like, that's where the world's headed. So it's fundamentally changed. It's like, if you're here today, good on you, because this is where the world's headed. Like, we're never gonna get more attribution back. The privacy is never gonna be what it was, but it's not like necessarily bad news. It's just you have to become more nuanced and take a little bit more of a leap in how you spend your advertising dollars. And this is just showing like where one of our brands started their campaign, and just watching, they were spending heavily on YouTube, which sometimes helps. It's one of those things where if you're already spending, it's nice to spend even more, because then you can see that actual lift. I always laugh. I mean, man, I feel like I don't want to tell any stories because some of them are current clients, but it's like, I have people that are spending $1 million a month on Meta, and they're like, yeah, we ran $5,000 on YouTube, and like, I don't think it's working. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, you're spitting into the ocean right now, you know? You're never going to know if it's having that sort of lift when you're spending $1 million a month, or $3 million a month on another channel. You do have to go into it with the mindset, we're going to figure this out, we can figure this out. Also, post-purchase survey data. I would say about half of the brands that have been able to scale use post-purchase survey data to finally give them the like, okay, you know, I'm seeing a crazy, like, we were not running more than a couple $1,000s a month, or $10,000, $20,000 a month on YouTube. We cranked up our YouTube spend, and now 20% of people, 25%, like a disproportionate number of people are saying they're finding out about us from this channel, that they're purchasing today because of this channel. It's like, of course it's not perfect, but man, it is so critical to collect that data to give yourself even more confidence. I also have the point here that, you know, all of our campaigns, we launch with at least 2 openings. A lot of times we'll do 5 openings. And a lot of that is important because you can see, I mean, even though the difference between 20 and 29 seconds doesn't seem that significant, that's a 50%, almost a 50% difference in average watch time. And then you take that over millions and millions of views, that's a big deal, right? And so we're trying to look for those like little micro differences in the wins. I'm gonna show you, before I head out today, 2 things that we're experimenting with right now. I can't even tell you that it works yet, right? This is like, this is where we're headed. I felt like I wanted to give you guys a little something to say, hey, go try this, because we're gonna be trying it with our brands coming at it today. So the first one is the QR code call to action. I thought this was really interesting. I got served this brand. Someone was telling me how well they were scaling, and I was thinking to myself about what we were saying earlier, how much YouTube is now being watched on a connected television. And I want you to just pay attention to just how subtly it begs you to go to the website. So check this out. I'm gonna show like the first minute.
Wearing enough layers to insulate Alaska. That's why you need the new and improved Bearskin hoodie. The 6-pocket Bearskin fleece tactical hoodie that blocks wind and regulates heat for incredible comfort wherever you are. Thousands of men across the world already love wearing the Bearskin hoodie instead of their regular hoodies. Why? Because sure, your average fleece hoodie provides decent insulation.
I won't play more of it, but you get the point. Really interesting. I know we all know QR codes are on the rise and everything else, but it's a good ad, but I have a sense that they're getting that attribution lift because they can see so much traffic coming to a specific landing page. It's giving them the confidence to scale. The other thing that Brett showed earlier was the UGC split screen. If you spent any time on social media recently, I know I'll see like someone with like a podcast clip, and then the bottom is just like someone like playing with like literally putty or something, or like doing something that has nothing to do with the video. And I think that there is a reality that like seeing 2 things happen at once is like juggling to the human brain, where it's like, oh, I'm paying attention. So I want you to think about how you can re-leverage your best performing UGC videos in this way. So here we go.
These laundry sauce pods make my clothes smell like heaven. I'm in heaven. I used to hate doing laundry until I tried laundry sauce pods. Laundry sauce is the only laundry detergent designed to keep your clothes smelling sophisticated all day. The scents are delicious and hypnotic, but at the same time, it's never overpowering like some perfumes or colognes can be. No artificial dyes, just raw cleaning power. Go pick some up right now at laundrysauce.com.
Cool. So I think you get the sense, right? Like if we just had that vertical video, we couldn't probably run it in that format. Of course, you run it in shorts. But by seeing the two things happening, it really takes things up a level. And that ad that Brett showed earlier was absolutely fantastic. I'm going to leave you with two final slides. One is we put out a quarterly report for free with all the best working examples that we have. And it's, like I said, it's free. It has all of our latest knowledge on it. Proud to say probably 7,000 people or so read it now, which is incredible. We started about a year ago just as an outlet to share some of these learnings. And so would love for you to check that out. And then if you're just like, hey, can't get enough of you, man, that would mean a lot. Feel free to just link in with me, reach out to me. I love talking creative. I love seeing people win. And I'm really, really glad that you're here today. I hope there's a nugget that you take away that helps you achieve that escape velocity. So thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Thank you.